Okay, so we will begin. It is now 2:03. And we will begin with a roll call. Could the secretary please make a roll call?
Yeah. Julian is here. Rebecca is here ex officio. Richard is here. We have Laura. Okay.
Yeah.
Laura and we have Caitlin and Nikita.
Yeah. Greetings, Caitlin and Laura.
Hi, sorry I'm late. I actually went to downtown and couldn't find parking, so I turned around and here I am.
It's good. We now have a quorum thanks to you.
Oh, good. Yeah. Sorry. I was like, I could either travel and drive around for 20 minutes or like make the whole meeting. So glad I could make it.
So that's it.
Yeah, so I guess Tom is absent and
Tom
Luke
and
and
Luke.
Scott are excused.
Oh, both of those are excused? Luke and
Luke
Scott?
and Scott, yes.
Okay, excused. Tom is not excused, and then we have a vacancy, so that's the 9.
Good.
So we have 5 present, so we do have a quorum. Next up is the approval of minutes.
Okay, yes, the minutes. Any comments? Hey, here you are. Actually, I think it'd be good if we just had a round of introductions very quickly. I'm Julian Shepherd. I'm chair for this year anyway. And Sean.
I'm Sean Reinhardt. I'm a first-year student at Binghamton University, and there's not much else to say. I'm studying biology and environmental science at Binghamton.
Good.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I represent the 6th District on City Council and am the ex officio member of the commission.
I'm Tom Costello. I'm retired Director of Code Enforcement for the City of Binghamton. I grew up in Binghamton, went to Binghamton University. Now I'm retired.
Well, I'm Jasmine. I'm also a freshman at Binghamton right now, and I'm most likely going to study biology. Like, I think like the 3 health courses for that. Yeah.
I'm Richard Giannaccio, and I'm the secretary of the commission and the chair of a few of the committees. And the bylaws, legislative, outreach and education, and ecotoxicology. And also by degree, a biologist and a journalist. And like Jasmine, we're both originally from Queens, but now we're here in Binghamton.
Good, thank you. So, any comments on the minutes?
Welcome.
Oh, yes, we could sort of go round.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Caitlin?
Sure. Hi, Caitlin Cerna. I'm a grant administrator for Northeast Air and have been working in agriculture and nonprofit sector in the area for over a decade, and also do some farm and small business, agribusiness consulting.
Hi, I'm Nikita Robinson. I have a master's in biology from Binghamton. Dr. Shepherd was my advisor, and it was a wonderful experience. And I am a private chemistry tutor, and yeah, so I'm excited to be on the commission.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Bond. I've been in Binghamton, I don't know, 5-ish years now. We're here. My husband's doing his PhD at BU, and I like my interest in the environmental world really relies on like gardening and public gardening. So I'm a site coordinator with Vines, and I'm also in the Master Gardener program at CCE, and anything to do with garden or gardening related, I'm interested in, and have always been interested in the environment, environmentalism. So nice to meet everybody again. Some of you, of course, I see every month, but for the new ones, hello.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Any comments on the minutes from any of the members of the commission? I do have 2 minor spelling. First of all, Laura, Laura, you do spell your name with a double R, right?
I do. It's not a typo, and I had no choice in the matter, so don't ask me
No,
why.
that's fine. We'll just get it right.
It's
And,
two R's, yes.
And I think that's in 3 places in the minutes, so. And the other one is, you wondered about Marcy. It's with an S, not a C.
Marcy,
Marcy, yes. But those are,
okay, MARSI, right?
exactly.
I don't have the minutes pulled up just this second, but I think I might have had a name typo because there's a million ways to spell Caitlin, but if you want to check that, but it's not a big deal for me.
We'll make those changes and resubmit them. And
Just, yeah, resubmit them.
one
Yeah,
password,
thank you.
we can approve with those changes made.
I think, yeah, we haven't been very rigorous about it, but I think it's a good idea to have a final copy somewhere. And I guess, you know, send it to the city clerk, but send it to us too. The commission members. Thank you. Okay, the minutes are, oh, we should vote on the minutes. If there's no further discussion, a motion for.
Motion to accept.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Can I abstain? I wasn't here for that meeting.
If you come up with something, let us know. Caitlin. Yeah. Okay. Public comment. You are the public these days.
Your last chance.
So every meeting, by the way, we abide by formal laws because
Yeah.
we are obeying of, you know, legal open meeting
Yeah, all
laws.
those people, yeah.
So anyway, if you have any comment, now is your time.
Is it regarding anything in particular or just?
Issues, yeah, any issues you think we should pick up or anything you think we should know? It's all right, you'll have more opportunities.
Okay, I think I might take the opportunity later. Nothing really comes to mind.
Sure.
right now.
Yeah. Okay. Previous business, okay, I just wanted to emphasize that because we have been changing times a little bit, that we will meet the third Thursdays at 2 p.m. And here unless otherwise notified. So for the time being, that may change because people get different schedules, so.
Here in the work session room, Julian?
Sorry?
In the work session room?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Siemens contract for bench barking. After our last meeting, I sort of was alerted that that would come up in city council. It's actually request for legislation number 24-221. And so I sent out a quick message and got responses from a couple of you, several of you. And so I presented those at the business meeting of the city council. What was it? Probably the 26th, I think, of February. And I told you on base camp what I'd said. I did say that bench, and by the way, the issue was a contract with a company called Siemens, who are sort of do all sorts of equipment contracts. But the idea was benchmarking, they call it, of energy usage in city buildings. And that means actually formally sort of, you know, attaching meters and measuring energy consumption. And of course, for, you know, considerations of climate change and also the economy of the city government, it's good to benchmark what usage you take out of different buildings. So that we had felt a long time ago that that was a good thing to do. Luke had brought it up last fall. But I did get responses from Tom and Luke particularly saying that there really should be a person in City Hall whose job it is to actually manage this. And that was not mentioned. My recommendation came out to being on their recommendation, actually, Tom and Luke's, that we postpone consideration of the contract until someone is appointed in City Hall. I haven't heard anything further about that from City Council.
We can share. So our last business meeting on the 12th, we did reject that proposal as
Yeah.
council. My understanding is that the goals of the contract will still be pursued. A new contract will be drafted. The city did end up identifying a contact person.
Good.
They answered a lot of our questions. Siemens answered a lot of our questions, but there was a good bit of hesitation around some of the details of the contract in terms of project work, but primarily that it roped us into a 20-year financial agreement and responsibility that we weren't able to identify like previous demonstrated efficacy for.
Yep.
So we rejected the proposal as it was submitted with the understanding that council would be more involved in drafting the next contract. Part of the challenge for council members is that this was handed, the contract, even though it was in draft form and ready to review at some point in November, council did not receive it until the end of January. And then it was requested that we turn around within less than a week and vote to approve or reject that proposal. None of us felt comfortable doing that. It was for multi-million-dollar 20-year commitment. And so we took several weeks to really comb through it. We have some construction and contract expertise on council. We have engineering expertise on council, financial expertise on council. And so all of that ultimately ended up in the kind of back to the drawing board with the contract. We do promote the goals in terms of energy conservation. Certainly the climate impact is a priority and a concern. But we do feel like that can still be accomplished through a revised contract, which we would like to see go to bid rather than just go to a single company. That was a piece of it as well. The contract as we understood it had not gone to bid. It had just been negotiated with Siemens. And certainly bidding is a responsibility that we find appropriate.
Good, thanks. Just let me check. Are you listening in up there on Zoom? Are you hearing all this?
Yes.
I'm here.
Good, okay, just need to check on that. Tom?
So, just to kind of amplify or clarify my concerns. One issue that the city, has with a contract like this is that we don't really have a facilities engineer or a facilities department such as the county has. So oftentimes a contract like this doesn't have anyone like watching the big picture, which requires a certain skill set. And then there's another side of it, almost equally important, which is the actual improvements that they're going to make or physical changes on the work orders, basically. And so that often calls in a different resource from the city to manage that. And in a kind of default way, in my past experience, that might fall on a department head where the event is occurring. Say it's the fire department, they'll assign someone that's in their managerial structure to work with the consultant, but it's not really closing the connection around facilities management more globally and what's physically like changing an air handler in this office, for example, or changing all the light fixtures out to LED lights. And over time, especially over 20 years. And changes in administration, without that internal resource, really keeping a close eye on the financial and energy consequences that we're aiming for. It's really difficult to evaluate performance. You know, I always, in my own experience with Siemens in the past as a company, they were fine. I never had issues with them, you know, on a day-to-day basis, but that doesn't mean that the contract is good or bad, one way or the other. It's also strange because it's a blend of professional services, which is typically qualifications-based procurement, and service provision, which is a bid, it's a bid, you know, because you're basically providing goods and material or goods and services. So that hybrid aspect of it makes it challenging also.
Okay, thanks, Tom, yeah. I must admit, when I learned of this request for legislation, I thought it was just about benchmarking. But I did realize that there was a lot, excuse me, that there was a lot more to it than just benchmarking. And I did listen to the, just now to the first half of the last council meeting about it. So that, by the way, is a $4 million contract over 20 years. So a lot of the sentiment was that they shouldn't really sign up for 20 years, because in 20 years things are going to be quite different. And as the chair of the or president of city council said, he probably wouldn't be around with his kids or even his grandkids. So he didn't want to saddle a future generation with that. I thought particularly you guys might be like to hear about that. So is that fair to say,
It is.
Rebecca? Yeah. So, well, I assume we'll hear more about that later. Okay, City Council did make a decision on our vote about fluoridation. And by the way, that was an issue that came up last year. The city fluoridates its drinking water supply, and have been doing so for at least 30 years, I think, probably more. But we discussed it at some length, and it actually was a fairly controversial proposal, and we voted 5-4 in favor of asking City Council to shut down fluoridation based on the dangers of fluoride. So we sent that to City Council. They actually listened to what the Broome County Health Department had to say about it, and eventually decided to not stop fluoridating the water. And Rebecca actually was made sure that that went on the record, because it could have been just ignored and fluoridation would have continued. But as it comes, as it will be, then fluoridation will continue for the time being. But we all await more evidence. So because the evidence is very controversial about it. And by controversial, I mean there's pluses and minuses. And one of my principal takes on that is that environmental issues like this are very often, usually, a measure of costs versus benefits. And you have to weigh what the benefits and the costs are. And at the moment, City Council feels that the benefits are greater than the costs. By the way, in case you're those of you who were here for the first time, the CDC, the American Public Health Association, and the American Dental Association all still recommend fluoridation, even though there's fluoride in toothpaste. And what the fluoride has been shown to be a benefit to prevention of dental caries, and that was why it was originally adopted. But there is evidence that at higher doses, certainly fluoride is not good. At the level that the city is doing it, it hasn't yet been demonstrated that that is to the detriment, but
And I would represent that was true, the reason for the city not deciding to prioritize the fluoridation issue, I think is what you've referred to it as, but fluoridation within the city's water treatment. Is that again, we did review the data represented from the commission. We had Dr. Lazarus Garrig, who was with the Broome County Mental Health or Broome County Health Department, present at a municipal and public affairs meeting as well. So we were receiving and able to review all of the data that is available. And again, move forward on not prioritizing that as an issue, both as a city council, but I do want to relay that my assumption, and I believe I'm okay sharing this as well. Our expectation would be that it's not something that the commission would continue to focus on. Is that an accurate representation of kind of alignment within the commission and city issues identified as priorities?
yeah, from my point of view, I would say we let the matter rest for now, but we can certainly take it up as more information becomes available. And particularly a decision was by a court out west was cited where the court decided that the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, should review the issue. And by the way, they review it, but then the CDC, the American Public Health Association, decide what they're going to recommend. But anyway, they more than recommended, they mandated that the CDC reconsider their advice on
EPA.
Right? Excuse me, yes, the EPA, yes. That's what I meant to say. The EPA reconsider their advice on toxic levels of as far as I know, that hasn't been pursued any further yet. I haven't heard what the EPA might do or what the litigants.
Last I heard, it was being appealed.
Yeah.
So their lawyers are talking back and forth.
Yeah.
Rebecca, I have a question. When was this decision made by the city council?
So we didn't have a formal, because there was not a formal request for legislation on the table to discuss on record. We did have caucus and internal conversations following the municipal and public affairs meeting. So it was discussed at that MPA meeting where Dr. Lazarus Garrig came in to present, and then was discussed in caucus conversations. We landed on wanting to represent at the last business meeting to put it on record that it would not be the city council's decision to pursue removing fluoride.
Is it usual practice to put caucus decisions on the record without having a vote?
There was no need for a vote because there wasn't a formal request for legislation or ordinance introduced. But my understanding is that there's been discussion, and I imagine we'll get to this in new business within the committees that represent interest in the fluoridation issue. And we wanted to make sure to represent city council's position, even though there wasn't a formal request on the table per se, to ensure that perspective remained aligned.
I saw the meeting with the doctor, because that's on YouTube. But I don't know if you had any other discussions with him. I didn't see there where he said that 0.7 parts per million fluoridation was effective in preventing tooth decay.
Well, I think the argument is quite a bit more nuanced than that.
Because most of the research that showed that was done with higher levels before it was lowered. So as far as I know, there's no research that shows that that's even effective, and yet that's the assumption that you made your decision with.
Well,
Also, the other part
I
of
would
it
pause
was
you on
that,
proposing how we made our decision and what we decided.
okay, but that was the
There were
information, you
multiple
said that,
studies that were
that there was a
represented by
balance
Dr.
and that
Garage.
you felt that the benefits outweighed the risks. Well, the benefits have not been shown,
So I
They
didn't
were shown
represent
many years
the-
ago, but
not with 0.7 parts per million,
agreed.
right?
There are
Okay.
multiple studies that we examined on both the commission represented multiple studies, Dr. Lazarus represented multiple studies. It is not an issue that we are going to prioritize that.
I didn't see him represent one study.
Oh, we did. There was a very recent study, the name at this point escapes me, but that combined several, I believe, international representations regarding the use of fluoride. That was responsibly peer reviewed. He brought up a handful of studies. They gave us a bit more information.
If you don't mind, I'll step
So
in
you-
real quick with a comment. I think I really want to make sure we don't get too hung up on this. Every time the situation comes up or this topic comes up, we tend to kind of redo the wheel all over again. I do have a public health background, my master's in public health, so I very much understand the wanting to fluoride the water argument. I was also one of the individuals who voted against fluoriding water, despite my public health background. You know, there is a growing body of evidence. I think it might be best if we table this conversation. It doesn't have to happen now. You know, maybe in a couple of years from now, more evidence will show saying that fluoridization maybe shouldn't happen, maybe reduced levels. But I think as of it is now, there are benefits to it. Yes, there are also recognized cons, and those are in the literature, and that is reviewed as well. That doesn't mean that these cons can overwrite the benefits as well. And I think right now, the evidence that we have and the fact, sorry, not feeling well, the fact that the CDC is also recommending we continue fluoridating water, it would be very difficult for a city government then to go against CDC's recommendation when you do have a population in Binghamton who is being benefited by this decision. So as someone who understands both sides, also in the fence, it doesn't have to happen now. I don't want to spend too much of the commission's time talking about this conversation every time we meet. I think it would be best if we table it. We understand city council's decision, what they made. There's plenty of room to bring this up later. And when I say later, I mean like potentially a couple years down the road as we know more. I just
I agree. I 100% agree. I think there's too much time that goes to this, and Rebecca already stated what City Council's decision was, and I do agree. I think it should be tabled and it's not talked about anymore during special subcommittees, and like just it's best for us to move forward, so we can do what we need to as a commission and not get hung up on this. So I agree. I think, Richard, if you have any more questions for Rebecca, maybe it's better to speak with her offline about it, so then we can move forward and it doesn't, this doesn't, what's the word? I'm losing the word, but it doesn't take over the whole commission meeting.
Thank you, Laura and Nikita. I would like to abide by that. And we can bring up the issue again and whenever it's appropriate, I would say, as new information comes in. Okay. Moving on to new business, could we have some committee reports from you, Richard?
Sure. Ecotoxicology Committee, the Water Task Force. Unfortunately, Scott's not here, but at the meeting, he told us that he got no response from Jeff Krugger, the supervisor, with regard to a tour and also information that he requested. He said he made numerous contacts, including phone that where messages were taken by somebody else, and yet he never got back to him.
I did put on record with Jeff the request from the commission, so I'll follow up with him, but it's theoretically, it should be more difficult to ignore something that's on record at a work session.
Yes.
So that was at the last work session. I've not
Okay.
reached out since, which is. my
So
fault.
Luke had suggested that he go to the mayor's office with the request,
No, I think,
thinking that maybe Jeff did not have the authority to grant it on his own.
No, he can.
Yeah,
I'll
okay.
give him a call. if not today, then sometime between now and early next week.
Okay,
If he ends up ignoring,
he wanted to
my
set up
call,
something
just
for
head
April
to-
because that's when.
yeah,
Scott would be
end of
coming
April
back.
is what I asked Jeff about and represented in the work session meeting, so it shouldn't be news to him.
And the Parks and Recreation Task Force, months ago, we had requested a list, invoices for chemicals that are used by Parks and Recreation for various purposes, landscaping. All we got was the pool chemicals, chlorine and pool testing. So I sent a request then to the mayor's office, and it's almost a month that I sent it to the mayor's office. So we're talking about 7 weeks altogether now with no action on that. I sent the appeal to the mayor's office on February 27th, which is just short of a month. Today's the 20th.
Yeah. Could I make a comment on that? I looked at your, I think I looked at properly at your Freedom of Information FOIL request. It was so broad that it covered all departments of the city.
No, just Parks and Recreation.
Okay, but everything they do. Okay, I misread that
Chemicals,
then.
invoices of chemicals that they use.
Yeah. Okay,
So,
you might think, Richard, though, you might want to narrow
Sorry,
it down
my
and you might
daughter's
get
school.
more of a response. I don't know how many chemicals they use, but if they paint a shed in a park, do they have to tell you what they,
Well, you probably, if you read it, you saw that I said including but not limited to herbicides,
Right.
pesticides,
right,
fertilizers, but they didn't include any of that. All he included was chlorine and pool testing chemicals,
okay,
so,
which wasn't even in the list.
one of the problems with a FOIL request can be, if you can point to an actual document. That's like, got a name and is being filed. And make your FOIL request on that. You're more likely to have success because. You're, as the applicant, assumption that data exists could be. It may not really exist in a format that can be transmissible. So it might exist informally, like there might be a guy that puts chemicals down. And he keeps a little notebook of what he's doing, but that's not a formal document. As far as the city's concerned, operationally, it doesn't exist. But you are required by law to maintain MSDS sheets, which are a formal document.
And there's DS.
Yeah, material safety data sheets, which there's another name for it now. But if you Google that, you can, so if you say. I would like a copy of any MSDS. Pertaining to X or Y, now they have to go. To that record keeping, and if they still can't produce it, then we got a larger issue, which is like, they're not in compliance with the law. Which. Each department's supposed to have a catalog of all their MSDS sheets. And they have to be readily available. There's a whole bunch of regulations around it. That's a place to start. Then when you get the information back, then you can ask more detailed questions. That might help you. That's why the pool people, because they're so tightly regulated, that's why they know.
So it's still addressed to the Parks Department, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what you wanna look into,
Yeah.
but. You could just say, can you send me a
So
list
each
of all your
department has their own
MSDS?
MSDS sheet.
Yeah,
with
so if you
everything
buy a
that-
new chemical. Like, let's say you buy rock salt, sodium chloride. It may very well, if it's a regulated substance, it's gonna come with an MSDS sheet, and you're supposed to file it. And it's got instructions in safe handling, instructions for what to do in an emergency if there's a fire or something like that, it's pretty much what it says it is. So that might help you. Because if I got that FOIL request. I'm not saying that's what you did, but just the way you described it, I wouldn't know how to answer it. Exactly the reason he pointed out, it's like how, if I buy a WD-40, but that could be a controlled material, but if I'm buying a can of it to like lubricate something. How do I keep track of that? You know what I mean?
Okay, so I'll give that a shot. And legislative committee, oh, I should say the ecotoxicology minutes were provided by Lottie, who was here last time.
Yeah.
And the legislative committee minutes by Shreyash. We approved task forces. At the last commission meeting, we voted to refer the blue bag issue to the legislative committee. So the legislative committee followed up on that by establishing a blue bag issue task force. And also a planning and zoning task force, which was also mentioned. That was when we were going through the Homsi. We were going through the papers that had been submitted by the students. And some of them went into the traffic. And then there was one that went into planning and zoning, and other that went into the blue bag issue. Those are 3 categories. Transportation, basically household disposal of waste, right, which is blue bag. So
When
we
you say
set up,
transportation,
huh?
you mean transportation of
Yeah, you have
garbage?
the Luke Transportation Committee,
Yes, right, yeah,
and you're on that with him, and
yes,
that's how those student papers were categorized in
Right.
those areas.
Yeah. Good,
So we have all the bases covered now.
good.
So we set up those 2 committees, those 2 task forces, planning and zoning, and the blue bag issue / household waste disposal. And
Okay,
What would the focus of planning and zoning be?
planning and zoning, we just set up the task force commission, but I think a lot of the people on the committee are concerned with flood mitigation.
Okay.
As a primary focus. We didn't really go into discussion. We just, wanted to set up these task forces because that was like the 2nd meeting that we had, really. We just set up, last time we had the elections, this time we set up task forces. We go in a stepwise fashion. That's our newest committee. Okay. And Shreyash also raised that meeting to present to the commission was today a proposal to collaborate with Senator Webb's office on an upcoming community event to foster community dialogue on environmental issues. Because he has an internship with Senator Webb's office, and he said that Senator Webb is interested in doing community events in the spring. And I thought if we're going to do one on environmental issues, April would be ideal because that's Earth Day and everything happening. So there's no set agenda or anything on that, but he just wanted to find out if we would be interested in that before pursuing it. And he would make the contact with the Senator Webb's office.
Right. So are you asking us if we would?
Yeah,
Yes.
I would make a motion to agree to collaborate with Senator Webb on an upcoming community event.
Thank you. Okay, it's a good motion. I would second this.
Second.
Will we have any sense of the agenda beforehand?
It hasn't been set yet. They're just like exploring what possibilities, who they can partner with, basically, to do these. Because they want to do a few different ones, and this is one of the ones they want to do, and they want to find out if they're interested before they put a lot of energy into it, I guess. But I guess the good part of that is that we could both have input into it, and have shared ownership of whatever results.
Okay, that's a motion. Any-
Richard, sorry, question before we do that. I'm just thinking, and apologies if I'm not understanding fully, but if I look at the calendar, if we meet the 3rd of every month, I know if they were thinking of like an Earth Day type deal, that would be like just days after our next meeting. So if with this motion, what exactly would the commission's role be and obligations be? My fear is that the timing of this may not make sense, but again, I could be misunderstanding.
No, you absolutely, that's a great question, but I'm expecting that if something materializes that's concrete, we may have to have a special meeting just for that to approve it.
Or do something like on base camp potentially, kind of like,
No, that Julian's call on that. What do you think, Julian?
Yeah, let's see what develops. And I'd be interested to, I think, you know, Senator Webb does represent the whole of this area, so I think it'd be good to talk with her about environmental issues.
Yeah, and environmental issues is one of her strong points that she ran on. And so she's a community activist before she became a senator.
I do see that as her present emphasis too, sort of more community affairs, but I'd like to hear her on environmental issues, and maybe she'd like to hear us too. So go ahead and see what develops, and we'll see what we can work out. Laura, are you good on the date of Earth Day?
say it again, am I good on it?
I don't know exactly when Earth Day is.
So I thought it was like the 20th. Let me look right now. Earth Day 2025. It's Tuesday, the 22nd, and our next commission meeting is going to be that Thursday before. So if by the time we meet next, Earth Day would just be in what, 4 days? So that's what I was thinking. If we did agree to kind of do something and they wanted to involve us, we want to involve them, it would probably require some time together in the interim.
Yeah. Okay,
So we're gonna vote that we are agreeable to the proposal, so we can
Yes.
get back to the Senator with something positive.
okay. So it's up for a vote, commission members,
We have a motion and a second.
those in favor?
I,
Looks like it's
Aye.
unanimous among
unanimous.
6 people
6.
to pursue the issue, yes.
Yeah, we can't do more than that.
Right,
And okay, outreach and education.
yeah,
Sean was nice enough to step up to the plate because Denise, our secretary, was fighting a cold that day and she couldn't come to the meeting. And he stepped right in, did a fine job doing minutes for us for the outreach and education committee. And we talked about the blue bag issue. The need for public education on that issue, whatever we come up with, because that's been part of the problem all along, really, right? Is that there really has not been a lot of outreach to the community.
Formally, probably, yes.
I mean, I heard that people thought if they just put out a blue bag, they didn't know that it had to have the city's stamp on it, you know, and
I think it's been an ongoing conversation from community members, but I don't think there's been a formal, aside from the legwork that Councilmember Matavetsky's been doing in the last year, in determining uniform sale costs and pricing. I don't think we've held any formal engagement or outreach.
but there's a lot of discussion about it.
yeah, so the blue bag issue is one of the issues that we want to pursue. And also we want to reach out to other communities, the outreach portion of the outreach and education, to see what they are doing that we may be able to borrow from. I know we've started that process. A couple of us went to Cortland, and because they had switched over from the blue bag to just receptacles a little over a year ago. I think January was their 1-year anniversary.
Just very quickly, do you guys know what the blue bag issue is? Okay, in the city, if you live in the city, you have to put any garbage in a blue bag for pickup by the city. We do have lots of recycling too, but that's separate. And the blue bags cost money. And the issue is that people think it costs too much in parts of the city. And therefore they don't do that. And they do other things with their garbage, which are not what we would, neighborhoods get dirty. So that's a very brief summary of the issue.
Can I just add a little to that too? Because Luke's not here, but the blue bag issue came out on the blue bag system and recycling system followed a countywide controversy around the construction of an incinerator in Kirkwood to burn garbage because the landfill cell at the time was reaching its maximum capacity. There was an environmental positivity attached to that argument because you're going to use the heat from the incinerator to recover energy, and energy recovery was a big thing, of course. So Binghamton uniquely came up with this blue bag or city issued bag and dual system with recycling. And trash was always kind of a third component of the waste stream that was always kind of challenging. Another component of the waste stream that's part of the waste stream is the commercial waste, which ultimately all goes into the waste stream, but it's not going into the blue bag kind of area. But the revenue from the blue bags was supposed to pay the tipping fee, which is the whole waste stream. So you had tension between residential waste and total waste or other waste sources. So it's really a lot more complex issue than just the cost of the bags, which is one component. It's what people tend to focus on. But if you are involved with the sanitation and the waste stream, it gets very complicated very quickly. Another component, when back in the 90s or the early 2000s, I should say, we were still getting paid for recycling. The city was for materials like metal and plastic and other recycling. Now the city pays. I think they actually pay more now to have people take recycling off our hands rather than paying us to feed it into their profit-making recycling world. So it's a very tough issue.
I think it even costs more than the tipping fees.
I was going to say that, but I don't want to speak when I don't know, but it's not. So to just stop doing the blue bags could set off a chain of events that maybe have unanticipated consequences, not to be cliche about it.
If I may just ask a clarifying question, so I have a little bit of a background on the blue bag issue, but so is it the blue bags are only used for residential spaces?
Yes,
Okay,
that's right. Tom.
or like almost
I
exclusively?
think you're more likely, I would say no, that's not necessarily true.
Okay,
There's a lot of small businesses of various types that choose to use blue bags. When you get a certain volume of waste, or you have specialized waste, like there's factories and places like that, that might have specialized waste. So everybody's kind of got a different approach to it. You can get your own, you're not prohibited from using a private hauling service in the city, correct? Like,
Tom, the private haulers, they have everything together, right? There's no
not
recycling.
necessarily, different
Do they
haulers
do
use different
recycling also?
systems. They use different systems.
Okay.
so yeah, it is very
And it's
nuanced,
a
but
moving target.
like there's a certain thresholds that people then are permitted not to use the blue bags, or they just use private haulers in that
So, yeah,
scenario?
like if you have a dumpster, the city doesn't
Got it, yeah,
collect their waste through the dumpster system.
Okay,
But
well, we
you'll
have
see like
actually-
Taylor garbage cans on the street, that's private collection,
yeah,
and they have their own rules.
yeah.
We have a blue bag discussion coming up later in the agenda, right? So maybe we should
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's true.
move on for
I think
now.
what I would just recommend for any movement. Like the blue bag task force, right? Is it a blue bag task force? Is that what we're calling it? Or this is just an issue?
Yeah,
Okay. I would just recommend making sure that you're connecting with Hadassah, since she's been doing a great amount of that.
Connecting
legwork.
with who?
Councilmember Matavetsky.
Medevetsky?
Yeah. I mean, she's been digging into it from a number of different angles for over a year now, so
Okay, yeah,
might be able to fill in some gaps.
I was wondering who the contact person would be.
Mhm.
And is she also the head of the committee handling this, or is that a different person?
I'm not sure that it's on committee at this point. I think it's been her primary, like a priority she's identified, but I don't know that it's been brought to the committee.
Okay, because like I said earlier, Shreyash and I are working on this, and he came across an article written by Bob Joseph, and the focus of that was just distribution of the bags. Like, you know, the retailers getting it to the people,
That's some of
And-
what
and-
Hadassah's been working
and
on.
also, you know, the cost to people that are in financial straits,
Mhm.
basically.
Okay,
Okay,
well,
so, and then also we talked about fluoridation being a complex issue that needs to be simplified and evidence-based. So that's the committee reports.
okay,
I want to withdraw as chair of the vacant properties committee. So if anyone would like to take over that chairperson position
of the,
of the natural gardens with,
oh, okay.
yeah,
Oh, the natural gardens?
Yeah.
I thought you said vacant property.
well, that's how it started originally. It's just got a nice name.
I see.
Oh, that makes sense.
I'll still contribute to the committee, but I'm just not able to like provide effective leadership right now, so. If someone's interested, you could contact me in the message board and we can go from there. In terms of set,
Who's on the committee?
don't have a list in front of me right now.
I do. Caitlin, myself, and Jill and Eve. Caitlin, would you be interested in taking that on? Just the chair of the task force, instead of just being a member.
I would be happy to. I am commuting a lot right now out of state. So I don't know how, if like digital would work for everyone, but that would be my requirement.
It's okay with me, yeah,
We can try it.
yeah. Okay, Caitlin.
Yeah,
we
why don't-
agree to your conditions.
Well, I would need a little more information from Tom on where things are at right now.
Well,
But
what we need frankly to do is to have a good discussion together, because I have a lot of sort of hazy ideas, and Tom may have some more formal ideas, but we have made some suggestions, but let's see, why don't we could you try to get us together at some point at a time convenient for you?
It could be digital, Zoom.
Yeah,
Sam will help.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to understand. I don't know what I don't understand what the agenda topics are that are being explored by the committee. So
well,
I would like to know what they are actually
Right.
currently working on as projects
do
to
that.
ensure that my expertise is complementary to leadership and not just I'm a warm body in a seat.
So what if, a suggestion would be to start a message string in Basecamp? And I can like present some information and everyone can respond. That makes
Good.
it simple, but we don't have to take a meeting time.
Thanks, and I have some ideas
All
too, I could contribute, yeah.
Okay.
So let's do that, okay, Caitlin?
That sounds great.
Okay,
I have a question I think we need to clarify about the open meetings law. I know there's a requirement that you have to have a physical space. I don't know if it means that the chairman has to be there or just a member, but there's some kind of a requirement for that.
I think, yeah, you're right.
So we have to check into that as well. I don't know specifically what it is.
Yeah,
If there are virtual, definitely worth checking, but if the meeting is virtual, there could be the opportunity still to identify this room as the physical space and have the clerk log in.
Okay.
Or a clerk log in to the actual virtual call so that it's representative of, and then everyone zooms in where they're from.
Okay. So does that modify the message string?
I wouldn't be the best person to ask about that.
I'll have to ask about that.
I prefer to ignore Robert's rules in as many cases as possible.
Okay.
Which are very few and far between, so I'm not the expert.
okay. So it goes in the minute that Tom resigns, and we will discuss with the possibility, we will leave it at that. Caitlin, the possibility of you being chair, okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I think there are no other. There's the Climate Action Resilience Committee with Luke Day and Scott Lauper. Neither of them are attending today, so
Never met,
probably not. Yes,
definitely not.
right. There is a bylaws committee too, but we've hopefully done that.
Well, at least until Scott gets back, we might have to make a couple of refinements,
Okay,
clarifications that we felt came up when we looked at them,
okay,
but nothing major.
okay.
I have to hop out to go pick up my daughter from school. Sorry, but thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca.
Mhm.
Okay, annual report.
Nomination of new committee members. You skipped.
Oh, yes, thank you. Oh, yes, sure, beg your pardon. I went directly from committee reports to other committee report.
Well,
Yeah,
probably
okay.
because they should have been grouped.
Yeah,
differently,
sure.
but that's okay.
So. Nomination of, yes,
Uh,
specifically.
I move to nominate Sean Reinartz, Jasmine O. to the committees of the commission.
Which ones?
Well, Sean is on education and outreach, and I believe Jasmine ecotoxicology.
Where the outreach to?
Outreach also?
And I was also.
Yeah, I think both want to be on both committees.
Okay,
It's very common. For a
Okay.
close family.
are you, I haven't heard anything, I sent Denise a message about the meeting. Actually, not this one, but the previous one. But I never heard anything from her. Is she still active or?
Oh, yeah, she was had laryngitis and cold.
Okay.
I guess like a lot of the students tend to get sick with the midterms because they overextend themselves. There's a lot going around.
Yeah.
In fact, I saw her on Tuesday and she said she had a fever the night before.
Wow.
Okay, so. I'm just, I guess, asking,
Everyone's still active that we've put in so far.
okay, all right, good.
Second,
Yes, you made the motion. Second, Tom, second, any further discussion? Okay. Vote,
favor,
all in favor?
Aye.
That's 5.
did we lose
1,
anybody?
2, 3, 4, 5, yes.
That's 1, 2, 3. Who's missing?
Well,
6.
I can't count. You're right.
You didn't forgot to count yourself, Julian, probably.
Probably, yeah. Okay. Okay, thanks. So. All right. Annual report. What I suggest about the annual report is that I think I should draft it. And why don't I do a draft? And I sort of listed Scott's suggestions. If you have other issues that you would like to bring up, I'll do that. But why don't I produce a draft report on base camp within 2 weeks? And ask for any comments from commission members. And by the way, you committee members, you don't know about base camp, but base camp is just the way by which maybe you do.
Yeah,
Good.
I have a little background on it.
Good, yeah, okay. But anyway, it's just a way of us communicating fairly simply, actually. And so we'll, yeah,
Yeah, I have one item to add to the list of
good.
the development and passage of the bylaws.
Okay, yeah, that's important. Thanks. Okay. Well, why don't you see what I come up with? We are required, by the way, to do an annual report. That's what the issue is. So if anyone has anything else to say about that right now,
Did we have one last year? Because I never saw it.
I never saw it.
So
Is
really,
the annual report does it often come out around this?
Comes around annual. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding.
Around this started.
Yes, I think it's actually supposedly due in April.
Oh, okay,
So.
okay.
Yeah, it is stipulated in the bylaws.
we actually had our very first meeting in April of 2024,
Yeah.
so it was impossible to meet the deadline, but I don't know if it was done at a later point or not. I never saw it, so
Yeah,
I guess you have nothing to go with, you know, no model or anything, just have to create it out
no problem. I've done
of
it before. Okay. We sort of have been discussing blue bags. That's the last issue I have on the agenda of new business, but I think we have sort of a plan with your task force, Richard.
Yeah, I could give you a little food for thought if you don't mind.
No,
Um,
as long as it's digestible.
I looked at the paper that was produced by the students,
Yes,
and they came up with 3 recommendations. One was reducing the cost for the poor. Number 2 was expanding retail outlets. Number 3 was make the bags more durable, which at one time they were more durable. They made them worse than they used to be. They used to be pretty strong when I first moved here 7 years ago. And finally, increasing public awareness, which I mentioned earlier, the need for public awareness. Because people should feel positive that they're making a contribution to the environment by going through the trouble of doing this practice with the blue bags and also with the recycling, because they kind of go together. And they were instituted around the same time, decades ago, right? So I would agree with all of those, but I would change number 1, which is reducing the cost for the poor. I would say provide the bags to homeowners when they pay their property taxes, and landlords be responsible for supplying the tenants an average amount with the extras to be purchased by the tenants if they have an unusual amount of garbage. And the reason for that is it would also help alleviate the retail inability, if you get your bags when you pay your taxes. City Hall. Just a thought. I know I got this idea not originally out of my head, but I used to live in Missouri. And when I lived in Columbia, Missouri, when you paid your taxes, they'd give you a set number of bags to last you for a year, and they were like construction quality bags, really good, strong bags. And when you ran out of those, you'd have to purchase more, but you got a certain quota, you know, and I think it also works in terms of making the public aware that they're generating excess garbage or they're like an average amount. Because then when the excess comes in, that's when you have to pay the extra bags. So that's just an idea that I would modify number one in there, but Shreyash and I are looking to go a step further and introduce a concept that the US EPA champions on their website, and that is to include composting. So composting, you separate the biodegradables and you got your recyclables, and then you have everything else. And only the everything else then goes to the landfill. So right away, you don't have the biodegradables going to the landfill. You have them going to composting. And at our landfill in the county here, they capture methane gas to use. It would be much more efficient if they just had the biodegradables and didn't have strollers and carriages and people's furniture in there to compete with it. So I think it would help the county a lot also and extend the life of the landfill. It's a mandatory 3-stream system that exists in San Francisco. And I think we should look into that, and that's what we're trying to develop as a concept.
Good.
Richard, I have a couple initial thoughts on that. It sounds like, incredible, like ideal world. That would be a fantastic thing to put it out. I imagine it'd be very difficult, like in feasibility. People tend to compost incorrectly often.
No, the
You know?
people aren't composting. It'll be collected for composting. At a site.
Okay, so the trash would all be together and it'll be like
It'll be separate. Yeah, it'll have to
out.
separate into 3 bins.
Interesting.
You'll have
Interesting.
biodegradables, you'll
Uh-huh.
have recyclables, and you'll have everything else.
You said San Francisco. I'm just trying to get
Yeah,
just a little more background information because it does sound like a great idea. I'll buy probably a decade down the road or years down the road. Was Missouri did it, you said, or Missouri was the example where you got the bags initially paying taxes, and San Francisco is the totally different composting example. Is that correct?
yeah.
Okay.
San Francisco is the one that has the 3 streams. They have 3 bins that are picked up, and one is the biodegradables. The other is the recycling, and everything else goes into a 3rd one.
And was it you, Luke? I apologize. Somebody mentioned on Basecamp there was the reduction in the sanitation force from 40 individuals back in like 2013. Now we're down to 27. So I imagine, well, like I say, Richard, that sounds like a really cool idea. I'm curious if Binghamton's just not right now, not in the space to even explore that idea more, given that our reduction in sanitation, perhaps focusing more on the blue bag issue. It tends to be a sore point for most people who live in Binghamton, and kind of keeping the composting, I don't know, almost as like something that we continue brainstorming almost, because I love the idea. I'm just so worried it's going to be too difficult to implement anything and we may not get anywhere. Those are my initial thoughts with it.
I'm thinking that the county would have to get involved with the composting, and it would benefit them the most because they own the landfill. So I think they would get the benefit out of it.
It's been discussed. I discussed it when I was with Public Works with the county at that time. It's different people now. But because our yard waste gets sent down to Boland's, and they pay about $75,000 a year. The city hauls it down there, and then Boland's composts it and sells it back as topsoil. But so you're driving the trucks all the way down to Conklin to their site, and then they're dealing with the yard waste. But I'd asked the county and it's. I don't think it's a bad idea to put pressure on the county. To try and do something towards composting and maybe and set up a facility where they did do the yard waste up there. And I think it would be beneficial countywide, not just for the city of Binghamton, but hopefully those are possibilities. So I mean, it takes, to me, a lot of it takes somebody that can get the background information and figure out what the numbers are. What does it cost? Like the fleet for the city of Binghamton and the manpower that it takes to change how they do the collection. The blue bags originally was already set up. I know I'm reiterating this, but was to pay for the tipping fee at the landfill. It goes nowhere near covering the cost of the collection. One thing I did see where the city has changed how they do the bags. They used to hire a vendor to make the bags, and then they would distribute them, like the Weiss Market wanted them, or CVS. They would do back charges, and they had different ways of doing it. Now I think it's the vendor deals directly with the stores. I think, I don't really know. I can't get too many answers out of people from the city that work here. But I did go to Casella yesterday. I rode my bicycle down there in Appalachian to the transfer station where they deliver the recycling. And I just talked to the people that work down there and looked at how they were doing things. And they could be city employees because I couldn't get straight answers out of them about anything. I shouldn't say employees. I should say city administrators. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I am gonna follow through on that because I know when I worked here and the county used to get the money for the recycling, and it used to go to Waste Management up in Liverpool, who had an enormous facility. And there, the person that managed the plant was more than happy to show me through the plant, the whole process, show me the slips and the receipts from the places that it went to. And verified that, like, indeed, like 98% of it was being recycled and was used. Now I understand with plastics, the whole market and the economics of it has changed since then. I'm talking 15 years ago, if not more. But I asked them at the county a year and a half ago if anybody had gone back to separation, which the city did in the beginning. Cardboard, paper, one thing, plastic, and then metals. And they just told me, oh, no, none of the municipalities are even interested in that. And it's like, well, maybe somebody should go through the exercise of what would that cost? Because a lot of the paper and cardboard is still of value. The metal is still of value. They are recyclable. The glass is still at least a wash, at least if you could break even on it. And it does get used. And there's a local firm that makes concrete using it. They use it in asphalt. There's different things that can be done. But I try and look at the whole program holistically, because the same people that are collecting the recycling are collecting the garbage. And as far as the quality of the bags, I mean, you could put out specs to make whatever bags you want. It's not great that they're plastic. So, and who knows, maybe there's new materials now. But I don't know if anybody saw it later, I think it was last night, I went through some old information from 2012, and there we had a sticker program, whereas large items, you had to put a sticker on, like a couch or whatever. And there was quite a significant reduction in solid waste going to the landfill. And the city did collect $881,000 that year in stickers and bags to help offset the expense. So, I mean, all those things have to be weighed out. But I mean, to me, it's like, I like to figure out how to work the economics of it, one side of things. I understand that people with the economics of low income households. But I think if that's the problem that we're trying to address, then we should look at trying to address that problem first, because the other, I think, is a much larger, much broader issue. Do we, in Cortland, they did it, they got rid of the bags. And the mayor said to me when I asked him, what how much effect it had on the solid waste to the county, and he said it pretty much doubled. He said he didn't have the exact figures, but he thinks that the tonnage doubled when they got
When they
rid of the bags.
discontinued.
Yes, yeah, so I mean, to me, that's a pretty big concern here. Because I wouldn't be in favor of going that direction, personally.
You wouldn't be in favor
I
of.
would not be going in favor of doubling our waste going to the
No.
landfill.
Absolutely not.
I think that's
Yeah,
the wrong direction, but anyway, those are just a few thoughts. I'll
What does that
continue to
mean?
try and get some more information. As far as the current. I did upload the current tonnages of recycling. Current solid waste going to the landfill, but I have to look at some more things and try and get some more data to put together. And I am gonna track that recycling down if it's the last thing I do, to find out where it's going in these bales, because they just keep telling me it goes to various mills and whatnot. And I said, well, how much does the city pay a ton? They said, well, you'd have to ask them because that varies too. Which to me, that was baffling. I don't know how that would vary, but. It's a lot of things I don't know. There's way more things I don't know than I do know.
yeah.
Anyway, in a couple of hours, I'm going to the county meeting, so what should I tell them? I was gonna introduce the idea of the, compost and the landfill issue.
And throw yard waste in there. They ever consider that? And now that they're gonna be down to one, they rebuilt the one cell and the other ones are gonna be closed.
Oh, the yard waste is now, they're looking for a new place.
Well. I don't see why we bring it to Bolen's and pay them $75,000. It's probably roughly the same distance to go to the landfill. They had a facility there, like other municipalities that take the yard waste or leaves and everything, and then they make soil out of it, and people usually can go help themselves.
Well, that could go into
Community
composting
gardens
too,
and things
if they
like
do
that should have
Yes,
access
You
to
don't have to have
that.
them separated anymore. That could be part of the composting.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be beneficial for everybody, I think.
Are y'all
I
able
have-
to see on your end, Caitlin? Oh yeah, she had her hand up. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Thank you, Laura. Yeah, I have a couple comments on this. And first, yeah, Laura, I appreciate you saying that the comment on compost could potentially be holding up really good progress that could be made on discussing the blue bags, just because we can make this too big of an issue that we don't make any progress at all. So I just want to try to stay mindful of that. But I did want to mention that in the North of Main district, Josh Underlay, who works for Cornell Cooperative Extension, is doing a compost pilot that I'm actually a part of, where he does compost pickup. And when I was at Vines, at this point, about 9 years ago, we had talked with the city about, this was before they were expanding their urban farm, and we had talked with the city about piloting some compost programs. And I know at that time, Amelia was pretty interested and eager to use some of their resources at land to try to just work in community and see if we can like test something out on a small scale and see like, how does this actually impact staff? And does this benefit the farm and community members? And how does the City of Binghamton staff have capacity to work within these constraints? So I think there's a lot of exploration that can happen, but I do, yeah, again, I just want to circle back to, I think the blue bag issue is something that I've heard about annually since living here for, 10 years, and that we might need to split our discussions a little bit so that we don't allow one to hold up the other.
And Richard, on that comment as well, sorry, then we'll go back to the blue bags. Because we were mentioning like the composting idea makes a lot of sense, especially for an environmental commission, but perhaps kind of more something long term, like in the works. In the meantime, I know you have is it a committee or task force? Like there's the education and outreach, because the Cornell Cooperative Extension, they do have a composting educator on staff. Her name's Kira Hayes, I don't know. But that might also be something that committee / task force, whichever one it is, could also take on to kind of build more awareness as we look at this as like a long-term goal for the city of Binghamton, because I think it makes a lot of sense, especially environmentally, the environmental consideration, but again, similar to some of the other issues we talk about, without that community support and more awareness of that issue, by the time like perhaps we're ready to like take this on or make it a change down the road, we might be back at square one if like the education and that support's not there. So maybe the goal now in terms of composting could be like getting more of that outreach element there, people participating in the composting events that we do have in Binghamton, some of those outreach things that maybe the educational committee can kind of spearhead, and while we focus more on the blue bags, and then that's like in the background, and then we're ready to like take on composting when the time comes.
Sounds good, thanks.
Yeah.
And I don't know if
Strategy.
I was clear before, but what I wanted to say was we had these gray plastic bags in Columbia, Missouri, that we would get a bunch of them when we paid our property taxes. And if we ran out, then we'd have to buy more. That was back in 1978, believe it or not. And they were very strong. They were like construction style, you know, you couldn't bust through them.
I'm laughing because everybody these days that I see puts out a blue bag on the curb. Hadassah was saying at the South Side Neighborhood Committee meetings 2 days ago that actually the regulations say that they should be in a container.
I never knew
With a
that.
top on it.
And nobody's doing that. They think it's easier for the people, but
Actually,
It's easier for the guys picking the garbage.
actually, that was a
Absolutely.
policy change in Public Works after you left. The Commissioner of Public Works were acting,
yeah,
directed that they didn't want any more containers.
I see. Oh, good,
So
okay.
that became like an unofficial policy regardless of the law.
Yeah, I mean, one of the issues with having the containers, people complain about the flimsy blue bags. So once they break, then the wind comes and it's all over the place, dogs get in it, everything gets in it. Whereas if it's a container, it doesn't. And you know, you have to think of these guys making 14,000 stops over a period of a week roughly.
Yeah,
And if they just reach inside and grab the bag, or do they grab the container, walk to the truck, throw it in, then walk back? They just gotta make one trip, but you know, there's a lot of different, but that's,
yeah.
you know. that's
The issue was
for another day.
uh,
Also,
varmints,
legal,
you know, raccoons, bears.
yes,
And so far, that's not a serious issue from what I see.
no, it's more dogs than anything else, and that's if it has food scraps and stuff in it. So if you are eliminating them and separating them, not so much, but anyway, and it's the stickers is still on the laws as far as I know. They just don't follow it, or they've been directed not to follow it. And the purpose for, one of the big purposes of stickers is landlords that own multiple properties inside and outside of the Binghamton city together. We're bringing in lots of stuff from apartment houses and other municipalities rather than pay to get it hauled away, which is illegal, but who's there to police it? So they're putting it in front of apartment buildings here, and then the city's collecting it, and then it gets spread out to the taxpayers to pay for all of that. You know, property owners are paying for it one way or the other, if it's through the blue bags or through this way or that way. It's still, the cost is the cost.
So I think there's a lot of wisdom in your council, because
Yeah.
if you took and mapped out, or like the detective crime shows, all the different agencies and people that got a finger in the pie, when you start pulling on the thread of the blue bags, I would say there's probably at least 100 or more municipal, private, public pieces to the puzzle that people just have no clue about. And that's before you even add in the public. And in fact, that from, you know, my perspective as former code enforcer, my next door neighbor, I think I complained about it at the last meeting. They had just raw garbage in the front yard, 30 feet from the center line of the road for 4.5 months. And suddenly it disappeared. I don't know if the city took it or who took it, but it took 4 months to get one instance. And I was going through back doors, not through front doors to get it done. So that's like another issue. It's like, how do you make people conform? No matter how smart your client is, it's like you're still dealing with the public. So that's why I really support the public education idea a lot.
Isn't that what the code officer does?
They do a lot of things. But
Yeah.
they
It's not their primary mission.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it could even be just because it's a joke, but the code official could put a work order into sanitation to clean it up, like the
Yeah.
mayor's been making a big deal about that on the radio lately. It's like it could still take a month before the work order gets executed, so. Back to your raccoons.
Okay, well, that's all very interesting. Why don't we put it to the task force to at least come up with some original ideas? So, and I didn't mean original, I meant just some kind of
Good
ideas.
follows.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah, we should have some by the next meeting, sure.
good. Any other issues that anyone wants to bring up?
I just wanted to mention that because of spring break and midterms, we have a lot of students on our committees. We had the March committee meetings at the end of February, so we won't have another committee meeting until just before the next April meeting.
Okay,
We had it a little earlier.
okay. I move for adjournment.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank